D1360 back with a video strictly on the new American members. Last week I did a video covering the American theoretical expansion candidates, and next week I'll do a video on the Sun Belt. For this video, I'll start off with a brief overview of the 6 new schools, and then we'll do a comprehensive data comparison across the league. UAB is located in the number 50 MSA, the number 7 state for football recruiting, number 148 in U.S. News, number 90 in Shanghai, R1 Carnegie Research School, 23,000 enrollment. They've experienced 29% enrollment growth since 2010 and have a $540 million endowment. UAB just opened the brand new $175 million protective stadium, moving over from the old Gray Lady. UAB went 23-6 in Conference USA in the 4 years following the resurrection of the program after Paul Bear Bryant Jr. nearly killed it in an attempt to avenge the deceased Gene Bartow. UAB won Conference USA in 2018 and 2020 and has a 25,000 rolling 3-year football attendance. UAB basketball is tied for the highest men's basketball budget among the 6 new schools. They've been to the NCAA tournament 15 times, had 3 Sweet 16s, 1 Elite 8, and if UAB basketball were to ever explode, Legacy Arena is completing a $125 million renovation. Rice is located in the number 5 MSA, the number 1 state for football recruiting. Their MSA has had a 20% population growth since 2010. Rice is the number 17 school in U.S. News, number 41 in Shanghai. They're a prestigious AAU university. They have a $6.5 billion endowment and the highest athletic budget among the new schools. Rice football also had the highest football budget among the entrants, and they won the Southwest Conference in '94 in a 5-way tie and Conference USA in 2013. Rice basketball is seeking to break a 50-plus year NCAA tournament drought since 1970. Charlotte is located in the number 23 MSA with no FBS team located within 70 miles. They're in the number 8 state for football recruiting, and the Charlotte MSA has had a 19% population growth since 2010. Charlotte is number 227 in U.S. News, 30,000 enrollment, and the school has experienced a 20% enrollment growth since 2010. 49er football was resurrected in 2013 after a 65-year hiatus in 1948, and they opened the $45 million Jerry Richardson Stadium in 2013. 49er basketball was tied with UAB for the highest men's basketball budget among entrants. They have a rolling 3-year attendance close to 4,000. They've been to the NCAA tournament 11 times and went to the 77 Final Four. UNT is located in the number 4 MSA, which has experienced a 20% population growth since 2010. They're the number 1 state for football recruiting, ranked number 111 in Shanghai. R1 Carnegie Research School, 41,000 enrollment, 13% enrollment growth since 2010. Mean Green Football opened a $78 million stadium in 2011. They have a rolling 3-year attendance of 22,000, and their Safeway Bowl with SMU has 41 all-time meetings, and in 2013 they actually signed a 12-year agreement to play out of conference from 2014 through 2025. Mean Green basketball play in the Super Pit, whose seating design is a lot like the Roundhouse of Wichita. North Texas has been to 4 NCAA tournaments, and they just had their first NCAA tournament win this past March. UTSA is located in the number 24 MSA with little direct market competition. They're the number 1 state for football recruiting. The San Antonio MSA has experienced a 19% population growth since 2010. UTSA is ranked number 130 in Shanghai, 35,000 enrollment, 14% enrollment growth since 2010, and UTSA had the highest ticket sales among the 6 new schools. Roadrunner football started in 2011 under national champion coach Larry Coker. They have a 3-year rolling attendance of 22,000, and they're currently ranked in the AP Top 25. Roadrunner basketball is qualified for 4 NCAA tournaments. FAU is located in the number 8 MSA, the number 2 state for football recruiting. Their MSA has experienced a 10% population growth since 2010. FAU is ranked number 153 in Shanghai, 31,000 enrollment, 9% enrollment growth since 2010, and they had the highest non-allocated revenue as well as the highest self-generated revenue among the 6 entrants. FAU started football in 2001 under the legendary Howard Schnellenberger. They opened a $70 million stadium in 2011. They have a 5-year Massey composite of 74, and they've had two 11-3 seasons in the past 5 years. FAU basketball is qualified for one NCAA tournament. American TV revenue per school is reportedly at $6.9 million annually through 2031-2032. Navy gets a 70% share, which comes down to $4.8 million, and Wichita gets a 30% share, which comes down to $2.1 million. It has been reported that the current American members will keep the same payout, while the new American members will not get the same share. I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is that the 6 new members will split the 3 vacated shares of Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF into half shares, which would come out to be a $3.4 million annual average. If those assumptions are correct, which I don't know, this is what the annual average TV revenue would look like throughout the duration of the contract. Temple, East Carolina, USF, Memphis, Tulane, SMU, and Tulsa would get a full share of $6.9 million. Navy would get a 70% share of $4.8 million, Wichita a 30% share of about $2 million, and UTSA, North Texas, Rice, UAB, FAU, and Charlotte would receive half shares of roughly $3.4 million. Here's a demographic comparison. The 6 new schools were located in the MSAs that were ranked 4, 5, 8, 23, 24, and 50. And of course, UTSA and UAB have little market competition, and Charlotte has modest market competition. The football recruiting rank of those states were 1, 2, 7, and 8. Here's a market growth comparison. It takes their MSA rank in 2020, and then the population trend is the rate of population growth from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. The Dallas-Fort Worth MSA with North Texas has grown at a 20% rate. Charlotte 19%, San Antonio 19%, Houston with Rice 20%, Miami with FAU 10%, Birmingham 5%. Here's an academic comparison. The first row takes their higher ranking between US News or Forbes. The second row is their Shanghai ranking, also known as ARWU. The third row is their Carnegie Research Classification R1 or R2, or in the case of Rice or Tulane, a prestigious AAU university. Here's an enrollment and endowment comparison. Rice has a monster $6.5 billion endowment, while UAB has a 23,000 enrollment, FAU 31,000 enrollment, Charlotte 30,000 enrollment, North Texas 41,000 enrollment, and UTSA 35,000 enrollment. And here's their enrollment growth from fall 2010 to fall 2020. North Texas, their enrollment has grown by 13%, UTSA 14%, FAU 9%, Charlotte 20%, UAB 29%, Rice 31%. Here are the revenues using the numbers from the USA Today database and the Department of Education, Equity, and Athletics. Of course, we'll never know the numbers for Navy as they're a service academy. And the graph goes from highest to lowest in terms of the Department of Education numbers. Using the USA Today database, which doesn't have private schools and some other schools, this breaks down their total revenue by student fees, school funds, and non-allocated revenue. FAU had the highest non-allocated revenue of the new schools. Wichita hasn't barely tapped into student fees and school funds. Here are those numbers in graph form. The orange is non-allocated revenue, the dark blue is school funds, the light blue is student fees, and those 3 colors together make up their total revenue. And this is sorted by the highest non-allocated revenue to the lowest non-allocated revenue. Here is what I call self-generated revenue per the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics database. Of course, they don't have private schools and some other schools. It's broken down into ticket sales, donor contributions, sponsorships, / licensing, and it all adds up to self-generated revenue. In the graph, the light blue is ticket sales, the dark blue is donor contributions, and the orange is sponsorships and licensing. Those 3 added up make up the self-generated revenue, and the graph goes from most to least. Wichita has very impressive self-generated revenue for a non-football school. Here are the athletic budgets, pulling the numbers from the USA Today database and the Department of Education, Equity, and Athletics. The graph is sorted from most to least per the Department of Education numbers. And including Wichita in here is actually an apples to oranges comparison. Wichita's athletic budget is very high for a non-football school. Here are the football budgets. Rice had the highest football budget among the new schools. And as you can see in this graph, Temple, SMU, Memphis, and USF are in a group of their own. And there's a lot of parity between everyone else. Here are the men's basketball budgets where there's a lot of variety from top to bottom. Memphis towers over everyone. Wichita, SMU, and Temple are pretty high. The six new schools make up the bottom six, but they will probably grow their budgets as they join the American and have access to new revenue streams. Here's a rolling 3-year attendance average in football. Memphis, East Carolina, USF, and Navy are all over 30,000. Temple's pretty close. UAB had the highest among the new schools at 25,000. Of course, Charlotte is likely to always be at the bottom as their stadium's capacity is only 15,000. East Carolina, about 10 or so years ago, actually averaged about 50,000, but losing has taken its toll. Here's a rolling 3-year average for men's basketball attendance. Currently, Memphis, Wichita, Temple, SMU, and Tulsa are the only schools over 4,000 average. Here's a 5-year Massey composite for all the schools in the Mountain West and American. The Mountain West is slightly ahead for now, but the American's idea is for the new schools to grow under the American name as they're going for long-term potential. Here's a 5-year KenPom for all the schools in the West Coast, the American, the A10, the Mountain West, and the Missouri Valley. Before calculating these numbers, I thought the American would flip-flop with the A10, and I was surprised when these calculations came out that the American was behind the A10, Valley, Mountain West, and West Coast. But it's worth noting that Memphis, Temple, UAB, and Charlotte historically are better than their 5-year KenPom. So if those four schools in particular revert back to their historical averages, the American should close the gap with those other four leagues. But still, if you're an American fan, you're hoping for everyone's ratings to be a little higher once the next iteration of the league starts. Here's the NCAA tournament history for all the American members by bids, Sweet 16s, and Final Fours. And finally, here's a one-sheeter member comparison. The first column is ticket sales, the second column is donor contributions, the third column is sponsorships and licensing, and those first three columns add up to the fourth column, which is self-generated revenue. The fifth column is the total revenue, whichever number was higher between USA Today and the Department of Education. One column over is their non-allocated revenue per USA Today. Then their athletic budget, whichever number was higher between the USA Today database and the DOE Equity and Athletics, followed by their football budget and their men's basketball budget. Then their academic ranking, whichever was higher between US News and Forbes. Then their ranking in Shanghai, followed by their Carnegie Research Classification R1 or R2, or in the case of Rice or Tulane AAU schools. Then you have their MSA ranking. As for the letters, the H stands for a high amount of direct market competition, the M stands for a medium amount of market competition, and the L stands for a low amount of direct market competition. I just used my own judgment for applying high or medium or low. The trend column to the right is the population growth rate of their MSA from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. The next column over is their recruiting rank in football of their home state, followed by their enrollment, then their enrollment trend, how much their enrollment has grown from fall 2010 to fall 2020. Next is the endowment in millions, or in the case of the private schools like Tulane, Rice, SMU, and Tulsa, billions. And finally, their 3-year rolling attendance. On the left is football, and on the right is men's basketball.